Hi, this is Ralph Zuranski. I'm on the phone with Michael Davis. He's the creator of the new comic book line, The Guardian line. It's a comic-based series that teaches biblical principles to kids of all ages and also of all ethnic types. So, Michael, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Ralph. How are you?
Perhaps you could explain a little bit about your life and how you got into producing faith-based comics.
Well, I was actually trained as an illustrator when I was a kid. I went to the High School of Art and Design in New York as well as the Pratt Institute. As an artist, you sort of tend to be, you're always looking for the next job, so to speak. One day I realized that I was on the wrong side of the business. There was a advertising company who was using my art to do a calendar. They were paying me $5,000 a painting, which at the time in my 20s was a lot of money, but they were being paid $1 million for the calendar. I realized that, and the calendar was all my artwork. So I realized that I was on the wrong side of the business. I started a company called Bad Boy Studios, and that's before P. Diddy, a puppy. Out of that grew a partnership with three friends of mine, a company called Milestone Media. Milestone Media became the biggest African-American comic book company on the planet. From that, I became president and CEO of Motown Animation and Film Works. That was their television and film division. At that time, I really wanted to find properties which would resonate to African Americans. So I started looking at the black church. Wasn't able to pull it off back then, but years later I met a guy named Jeffrey Wright who runs Urban Ministries. We started talking. We connected a few years after that conversation, and that is pretty much how the faith-based comics came to be.
Well, that's pretty amazing. It seems that you've had quite success in a lot of the different areas, and you have a animated comic show that's one of the best watched shows called Static Shock. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Static Shock started on the WB, I think 5 years ago. I think last year we moved to the Cartoon Network. It's an extremely highly rated show. Very, very proud of it. Actually, the original Static Bible, which I wrote, was based on my life as a teenager, and it's pretty true to that Bible, which is very exciting. I'm very proud of that show.
Well, I wanted to go ahead and ask you some of the heroes questions that I've asked quite a few heroes in the different areas of the military and in the internet industry and in nonprofit organizations. And so I wanted to ask you, what do you want out of life in 10 words or less?
Oh, that's easy. Peace of mind and to make a difference and do some good.
What is the dream or vision that sets the course of your life?
Realistically, I would like to have some kind of impact on the lives of young people. That's pretty much why I create universes that are filled with kids of all ages and ethnicities. Because it's great for kids to recognize themselves when they see something on television or they read about themselves in a book. So that's pretty much my dream, to have an impact on the lives of young people.
How important is it to stay focused on your primary goal?
Extremely important. I would say as a business person, it's the most important. Too many people, I feel, get sidetracked, and there's an old saying, jack of all trades, master of none. I'm one of those tunnel vision guys, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And so it's extremely important to stay focused on your goal.
Do you follow your hunches and intuition?
Absolutely. I want to have complete dominion over my life. I want to be the person who decides what I do, how I do it, and when I do it. It's taken me a while to get to that point, but pretty much now my hunches or intuition are my life's blood. I can't tell you how many people in Hollywood, when you come to Hollywood, you have agents and managers and entertainment lawyers, and a lot of those people are set up to say no. A lot of those people are set up to try to discourage you because it doesn't benefit what they do in terms of making money off of your labor. So I absolutely follow my intuition and hunches.
What specific philosophy or philosophies guide your life and your decisions?
Excellence in what I do. I want to be the guy who absolutely, when you look at the work that I produce, when you look at the things that I've done, you can love me or hate me, but I'd like to be respected for being original and really being good at what I do. And that really drives my philosophy, especially in business and in life. I'd like to be the best friend that I can to people. I'd like to be the best relative. I'd like to be the best neighbor, although don't ask me for sugar because I don't want you coming to my house. That's a joke.
What is your perspective on goodness, ethics, and moral behavior?
Well, that's easy. Do unto others. I think that real morals are what you do when no one is looking. I think it's real easy to pretend to be a certain way, but, I'm a very simple person. I like to go to sleep knowing I've made the right decisions that day, knowing that I haven't done or said anything which has caused anyone any pain, knowing that I made decisions based on honesty and truth as opposed to based on personal gain. Sometimes it's harder to say no. I mean, it's easier to say no than it is to say yes, but if no is what you need to say it, and be okay with your decision, pretty much. And you cannot regulate morality, which is what a lot of people in government try to do. I think the best way to have a more moral society, so to speak, is to lead by example. Parents, people in the forefront, especially people who have influences on kids, like artists, hip hop artists, rock and roll artists, heavy metal artists. Real easy to get caught up in that stuff, but you got to stick to what it is that you know. And what I know is that it's easier for me to be a morally upstanding human being as opposed to someone who's out for self. Mm-hmm. Sorry about being so long-winded.
Well, what place does the power of prayer have in your life? Lately,
quite a lot. What I do is very, very solitary. I'm sitting at a computer most of the day. Most of the stuff that I have to do involves, it's twofold. There's the creation of the content, and then there's the business of the business. Oftentimes, where you really want to be doing something creative, you can't because you got to attend to the business. What prayer has done for me is really calmed me down because it's really like having a conversation with someone who you know is always going to support you. So lately, quite a lot.
Well, what principles are you willing to sacrifice your life for?
My family. I hate anything that has to do with injustice. Living in Los Angeles, you often see things which are less than, I'm looking for the right word here, Ralph, fair. I think that's the right word. And I hate seeing that. I hate seeing people who are taken advantage of. There's a whole class of human beings out there who simply don't have the infrastructure to combat people who are, for lack of a better word, just mean. I think family and anything that has to do with any injustice, I would most likely, if my family is threatened or I get involved in some sort of moralistic fight over injustice or bigotry or anything like that, I think that's something I'd be willing to give my life for.
Are your actions and goals consistent with your beliefs?
Absolutely. I sleep very well at night knowing that.
Is it valuable to have highly charged emotions about achieving your goals?
Well, for me, that's a funny question because I have an extremely over-the-top, personality. You're actually getting a very calm Michael Davis. You will speak to, there are three kinds of people in the world, so to speak, when it comes to me, in terms of my life. There are people who love me, there are people who hate me, but either you love me or you hate me, everybody respects me, because I actually do what I say I'm going to do. And I have an over-the-top, in-your-face, not shy about a personality. One of the things that I like to do, and this is a quote, this is not my quote, this is attributed to Yogi Berra. My thing is, it's not bragging if you can do it. So if in fact you've done something remarkable, and I've had some pretty good things happen in my life, I think you should be as loud as you can about that and bring as many young people into that fold to let them know that, yes, this is possible for you also. I did this. I grew up in the projects. This is what happened to me, but this is what I have achieved. And I'm probably not as smart as you are. I'm probably not as astute as you are, but this is what I can achieve. This is what I have achieved, and this is what you can achieve also. And I'm an in-your-face guy. I'm like, bam, 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 in your face. So my highly charged emotion, I wear them right on my sleeve. And most people get it. Some people don't, but, hey, I don't eat spinach, but, some people like it. What can I say?
Is it useful to take a positive view of setbacks, misfortunes, and mistakes?
Yes. There's this one saying that I love. What doesn't kill you will make you stronger. I think that is absolutely true.
Is optimism valuable?
To me, my optimism has closed more deals. And if you take a look at my resume, I've done some huge things. And I'm not saying that to impress you or your listeners or readers. I'm saying that to impress upon you that my optimism has gotten me those opportunities. If you can get into a room with somebody and you can express to them how excited you are about a certain opportunity, a certain deal, a certain anything, you will most likely get those people on your side. Now, getting the deal and keeping the deal are two different things. So if you're optimistic at that meeting and you have this great idea to change the world, that situation where you've been given the opportunity to change the world and you do not perform, well, your optimism has pretty much done you. My optimism is the one thing that I will never change.
That sounds important. Do you maintain a sense of humor in the face of serious problems?
I would probably maintain my sense of humor in the face of a firing squad. I find most things funny. And given my upbringing and the tragedies which have happened in my life, I thank God that I have this kind of sense of humor. The other side would just be too depressing to even deal with.
Well, do you take time out of your day to feed your subconscious positive thoughts about you, your goals, and your dreams?
I think that's very important, especially if you're in the field like I am in terms of being a writer, being a creator, being anyone who has to do anything which involves you sitting alone in a room and trying to create something. I cannot stress to you the ability to just be yourself in those moments. And I'm not smarter than anyone else. I am cuter. But you got to take the time to really deal with yourself. And, sometimes your subconscious is telling you stuff that you need to listen to.
No, that's true. Well, do you have the courage to pursue new ideas? Do you think it takes courage to pursue new ideas?
I think at this point in my career, Ralph, I don't know if it's courage. I don't know if at this point in my career it's courage, but pretty much how I've made my living since I was 18 has been coming up with stuff that no one else is doing and selling it to someone who had the means and the budget for me to see it through. First as an illustrator, then as an owner of a company, then as a head of a division for a major company, yada, yada, yada. But I don't know. I think it takes courage coming out of an environment where everyone is telling you, hey, you want to sit down and be an artist, and you're living in the inner city, and being an artist is it's not the coolest thing in the world. That takes courage. I was lucky enough to have, my mom and my cousin support me, when I was living in the project, wanting to be an artist, and everybody else was outside doing things which weren't good. So for me, I think it took courage when I was younger. Now I think it takes fortitude. I just think it takes drive. And you got to know what your goal is.
Yeah.
I know exactly what my goal is. And for a lot of young people, they don't know. But once you figure out what you want, it's a lot easier to get there. So courage for me, I don't know if I was that brave because I had a lot of support, even though I grew up in a really rotten area. But I can see how it will take courage for a lot of young people out there if they don't have that support, which is another one of the reasons why I am so adamant about telling kids that they can do this.
Well, didn't you grow up fatherless, and weren't your grandma and your sister killed?
My grandmother and my sister were both taken by violence. And I was raised by my mother, my sister, and my grandmother. The thing that I had to learn real fast is I lost my grandmother and my sister, but my mother lost her firstborn child and her mother. So I had to pretty much grow up fast. But it would have been real easy for me to slide the wrong way. Yeah.
Were you willing to experience discomfort in the pursuit of your dream?
Every artist does. Every artist. This may be cliche, but, if you work hard for something, if you're a little hungry, it makes it all that much better when you do achieve what it is that you achieve. There is no doubt if you have to work for something really hard, when you achieve it, it feels better. I don't like it. Nowadays, I'm in less discomfort. Things are looking pretty good nowadays, but earlier in my career, it was extremely discomforting. And I never really thought of it as discomfort then. I thought it as paying your dues. Yeah. You have to experience some kind of discomfort.
Yeah.
Especially if you have a dream. If your dream is easy, it's not a dream. Dream is something which, by definition, is something which is so phenomenal in your life, you're willing to make the sacrifices to achieve that dream. If you have a dream that comes easy, that's not a dream. That's a thing to do. That's
Sure.
not a dream.
That's sort of a slam dunk.
Take a look at people, old money people. There are families in this country who have extreme wealth. More often than not, or maybe I shouldn't say more often than not, very often, not everyone, not every family, but a lot of these families, you will see about their kids having problems with drugs, their kids having problems in school, their kids having problems with authority. You know, so money really doesn't make you a better person. I really think that some of the suffering that you do when you get that kind of money, when you get real money, you tend to appreciate it.
Yeah.
My mother, the last time my mother came to my home, I was living in a loft in Tribeca in New York City. And this loft is 5,000 square feet, 100-foot ceiling, beautiful, absolutely stunning, Architectural Digest loft. My mom comes over and checks my cabinets to make sure I have enough to eat. That's grounded, you know, and I still handle my money as if I don't have another job coming. And a lot of people with, you know, that with real wealth, they get in trouble because they don't get it.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, is it beneficial to make decisions quickly?
It's beneficial to make decisions. Now, for me, it's beneficial to make decisions quickly because I pretty much know what I want. So I have a goal. When you're younger, I think you really need to spend some time and think about it, but not too much. There are a lot of people, especially kids of color, but this applies to all kids, where they have an idea. They've written a screenplay. They've done some artwork. They've taken some pictures. They're doing something artistically, but they don't show it to anybody. They don't show it to anybody for any feedback. They just keep it in because they want to get better. They want to get better. They want to get better. That's a big problem for a lot of people because by the time they do show it to people, there are all these problems and they get discouraged because they work forever on it. So I think taking too much time is troublesome, but not taking enough time is troublesome also. For me now, in this stage of my career, I make decisions very quickly because I'm sure of what it is that I want. And I really don't work with people who take their time doing stuff anymore. You know, I mean, I just don't. I'm just not that guy. I don't have that kind of patience to work with people who simply take forever. You know, the creative process is one in which decisions should be made so you can get to the next level as opposed to taking your time trying to figure out how to jumpstart something. So my advice to younger people is take some time to make sure it's what you want to do. Don't take too much time because the rest of the world will pass you on.
Well, once you make those decisions, are you slow to revise or reverse them, especially if they're important decisions?
Nope. Clean it up fast. You know, admit my mistake, move on. You know, I'm a paper trail guy, and I think this is also important for young kids to understand, especially people who want to get into the entertainment business. Write it down. You know, if it's something that you have to do, write it down. So even if it turns out that it's a mistake, you will have a written record of what you did wrong, so you can go over it in your head, or at least go over it so you know not to make that mistake. Again, you know, my philosophy is clean it up fast and go on to the next thing. Admit you were wrong. If you need to apologize to somebody, apologize. Clean it up, go on to the next thing.
Well, in the process of becoming successful in achieving your dreams, how were you able to overcome your doubts and fears?
My mom and my cousin made it really, really, really easy for me by supporting me the way that they did. I grew up in a place where if you walked out the door on a certain day, certain time of the day, you could be shot. I never really appreciated that till I left because my mother set boundaries for me, and my cousin allowed me to come and work with him on the weekends. So it kept me out of that whole Saturday night fever kind of going to parties and rival gang territories and hanging with the homeboys. It kept me away from all that. Even though I was living right in the middle of it, it never really dawned on me how dangerous it was until I got out because my support system was so good.
Wow. So do you readily forgive those who upset, offend, and oppose you?
Ralph, to be perfectly frank, I got a real hard time forgiving people who do stuff out of spite. I have a real hard time forgiving people who do stuff because they simply don't like you. There is a very, very famous artist who works in the comic book community who has called me a fraud because he thinks that if you're going to work in comics, you've got to draw comics for 20 years and do all the rest of this stuff to get your feet wet, and you have to come up through the grindstone. Well, I didn't do that. I create business plans and get it to people who make the decisions. I sidestep all of that stuff. And quite frankly, corporate America is not stupid. They do background checks, they do all this stuff. So, so a fraud by definition is somebody who pretends to do what it is that they say to get you to buy into it so you can give them money and then they expound with the money. A fraud doesn't do the job. And I pretty much do the job. That's what I do. I get a deal, I do the job, I service the deal, I create this stuff. So it's a little hard for me to forgive this guy because he's jealous of my success. Eventually I will, but I got to be honest. People who don't like you because of your personality, I understand that. It's human nature. But don't tell other people that this is your opinion. He made the mistake of telling one of my best friends that he thought I was a fraud. And my best friend's like, hey, I'm his best friend. Don't talk that way about him to me. Most people understand that my over-the-top personality is because I'm just a real knucklehead. But he is really, really, really adamant and upset. Mm-hmm. You don't become president of a major corporation because you can't do the job. Maybe one day I'll forgive him, but right now he's on my hit list, figuratively speaking. But now people who oppose me, he hasn't really done anything to oppose me because he's not at a level where anything that he says is important because he's not sitting with people who make those decisions. He's not sitting with the decision makers. But people that oppose me, I don't even think about. If you take time out of your day to try to figure out how to stop Michael Davis, when Michael Davis is not even thinking about you, it's my philosophy about celebrity. You got all these TV shows on the air talking about Paris Hilton and talking about Tom Cruise and all this nonsense. And somebody asked me, I was coming out of McDonald's once, and somebody asked me how I felt about Tom Cruise's baby. The fact that, they were interviewing people for the show. How do you feel about the fact that Tom Cruise's baby hasn't been seen? I said, when you ask Tom Cruise how he feels about Michael Davis, I'll comment on Tom Cruise. Other than that, what do I care? I spend no time thinking about people who don't affect me in a positive way. And lastly, if you do something to me which causes me harm, but you had no intentions of doing that, if it's a mistake, if you make a mistake, if you apologize, I forgive you in a heartbeat. If you own up to what it is that you've done. Because, quite frankly, Ralph, you and I both know there are people out there who do stupid things that affect other people.
Well, that's true.
They don't think about it, they do it.
Yeah.
Those people I can forgive because that's not out of spite, that's not out of malicious intention. That's simply because they made a mistake. I can forgive mistakes all day long.
Yeah, that's true. It's hard.
And again, I got to apologize for being so long-winded.
That's okay. Yeah. It's important to share what you believe because everybody wants to relate to somebody that has emotions. They're not just a robot. They actually live, breathe, and feel. And everybody does, and that's the true basis of life, especially in how they relate to others.
I also think, I sort of went on really long about the guy who called me a fraud, and I probably gave him way too much power by going on that long, but I will say this. Those are the sort of things, if you are a lesser human being in terms of your self-esteem, my self-esteem is very powerful. Yeah. I think I'm all that in a ham sandwich. Right? Yeah. And I and I tell kids, you are all that in a ham sandwich. Some of the biggest names in the comic book and animation industry have come out of my mentor program, and these kids are absolutely, they're not kids anymore, they're not grown men, but they're absolutely the best at what they do. And what we try to do in the program is instilled in with a sense of self, with a sense of purpose, and their work with a sense of excellence. But, I'm still, I still get a little pissy face over stupid things which people say about me.
I think we all do.
Sorry.
That's okay. You experience service to others as a sense of joy.
Oh, yeah. That's why my mentor program, the biggest thrill that I get out of that is seeing somebody achieve something they didn't think they could. My favorite time of the year is Christmas because I just like doing stuff for people. I'm impossible to buy for because, I collect toys, and I collect G.I. Joes and Barbies. But I want everybody to know out there that a real man can collect Barbies. So it's impossible to buy for me at Christmas time because first of all, the G.I. Joes I collected from the 60s, and you don't want to spend that kind of bank and not know whether or not I have one or not. And second of all, I'm pretty much at peace. I don't need a whole lot of stuff. So buying for me is like, hey, I appreciate it, but you really didn't have to. But I get a lot of joy going out buying stuff for my family and my friends. I love that. I love the look on parents' face when their kid gets into a school that they didn't think they could get into, but because they were tutored by people in my program or by me, they get this sense of excellence, this sense of self. So, yeah, I really get a kick out of doing stuff for other people. I don't know what it is. I just get a kick out of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, when was the lowest point in your life, and how did you change your life path to one of victory over the obstacles you were facing at that time?
Actually, I touched on this a little before. When my sister died, it would have been really easy for me to end up in jail or dead myself. My cousin, William T. Williams, that's his name, very famous artist, and my mom, Jean, made it really, really easy for me to overcome those obstacles, those dangers in my life. So they really took me under their, they took me not by preaching, but by teaching. I mean, there was some preaching in there, but it wasn't over the top. It wasn't, you have to do this to be a better person. It was, here's what you need to do. Here's how it's going to affect you if you do this, and here's how we're going to help you. That was the lowest part of my life was that, but I was able to regain a sort of path to victory, so to speak, with the support system in my life.
Mm-hmm. So it was the family members that helped give you the ability and the willpower to change things for the better.
Right.
How important is it to believe your financial dreams will eventually become true or reality?
For me, money's never been a big deal. When me, my mother, and my sister were living in one room, our big deal was getting into the project, but we were renting one room, so we all slept in the same bed. I guess I must have been around 6 and my sister was 10, but that's still pretty big for 3 people to be in the bed.
Yeah.
Anyway, we all slept in one bed, and I remember when we got into the project, how that was like moving into Shangri-La. But even though we were dirt poor, I never knew I was poor because I didn't have any frame of reference. I didn't know that people had big houses. I didn't know any of that stuff. It wasn't until I got further along in school when people started buying Converses and Pro-Keds, and I went home and told my mom that I wanted sneakers for Jim. And she said, let Jim get his own sneakers. I'll never forget that. Yeah, see, 30 years later, that still holds up.
Yeah.
I really didn't know that I was poor until I started making some money. But money is easy to make if all you want to do is make money. That's a quote from Citizen Kane.
Mm-hmm.
My main goal has never been about making money. Money is important, but it's never been much. If I had to think about making money on a personal level. Now, when I'm in business, it's really important to create a revenue stream so that the business can be sustained. I understand that. My philosophy in business is low overhead, high revenue.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as personal finances, never really worried about that.
Well, do you think it's valuable to know how much money you want to have in your banking account and by when, by setting goals?
Absolutely. It's very valuable because, again, in business, and with your family, if there's something you want to do, if it's having, knowing that you've got $1,000 in your account and something is going to cost you $100, that's nice. It's peace of mind. It's very, you have to keep track of your finances, and I would suggest that for people who are starting out, I have a money manager, but I manage my money manager, if you get my drift. Yeah. I'm not going to be one of those guys who finds out his money manager has invested in seaweed off the coast of Jerusalem, and now I'm penniless because I let somebody. I'm not that guy. So I have a money manager specifically for my taxes to make sure that I don't go to jail. But I'm not really interested in somebody else controlling my resources. But yes, knowing exactly how much money you control, and it's not even how much money you have, which is important. And I want to make sure that I get this across to any young people who are listening to this. It's not how much money you have, it's how much money you can control. If you can call up, if you got $15 in the bank, but you can call up somebody in business who has access to a lot more than that, and they will let you utilize those funds for your project or whatever, that's very powerful,
Yeah. Well, I know that a lot of people say that you should never go into debt to achieve your dreams, and there's other people say that if you can utilize the capital of others to fulfill your dreams, you'll achieve it a lot faster than if you tried to finance it on your own.
Well, it's my, I've heard people, and a lot of people in the African, because I do a lot of work in education, I do a lot of work with the school systems, I do a lot of work with kids, and I hear parents telling their kids not to take out student loans, which I think is the stupidest thing that you can tell somebody. Take out a student loan, go to college, get a good job, pay the loan back. Or don't take out a student loan, don't go to college, starve and die.
Yeah.
I'm debt free now, but I pretty much had a lot of debt.
Yeah. Oh, do you think by having that debt helped you get to where you are now?
Once again, I have a goal, and I've had a goal for a pretty long time. In this day and age, especially, you can't really go to college without getting some sort of financial aid. For people to make decisions at 18 years old that they don't want to take out a bank loan, to me, in my personal opinion, is just crazy. I mean, the whole thing about a student loan is that it helps you get through school. Then you get out of school and you get a job, you pay it back. That's a beautiful thing. The debt I've accumulated in my life has mostly been that kind of debt, student loans, business, things like that.
Well, what is your definition of heroism?
I think it's the way you act and the good things you do when you don't expect any reward or when people aren't looking. I think a real hero is somebody who makes a decision to do something to help someone else just because they can. This may be a little bit of a controversial thing to say, but not too long ago, there was let's just say, I won't even mention the sport, because if I mention the sport, you'll know who I'm talking about. But let's just say it was a very dangerous sport, and a very big star was killed doing this. And all these people were calling him a hero. That's not a hero. He got paid a lot of money to do what he loved to do. That's not a hero. A hero is the fireman who goes into a burning building who makes less than it's not a whole lot of money to be a fireman.
Yeah.
I mean, and you got to have a certain kind of drive to do that. A hero is the guy who takes care of his family. The hero is the man who won't desert his girlfriend, if she gets into trouble. Hero is the man who takes care of his son. I mean, I don't know who my father is, but he ain't no hero.
Yeah.
He left me.
Yeah.
Left my sister. It's like, all right. So my mom's a hero.
Yeah.
She never once thought of herself. She always took care of me and my sister first.
Mm-hmm.
So, I hear a lot of stuff about heroes, man, but hero is not somebody who does something, dies, and then he's called a hero because he was really, really good at what he was doing. No. A hero is selfless.
Yeah.
So.
You had a pretty rough upbringing. Did you ever create a secret hero in your mind that helped you deal with life's difficulties?
It was Johnny Gent.
Johnny Gent? That was your character?
I haven't thought about that in years. His name was Johnny Gent. Me and him were boys. We were imaginary. He was my imaginary friend. I had a whole history about him.
Really?
Yeah.
What did he do? What were the
qualities? In one of my books, now that I think about it.
What were the qualities or attributes?
He just did the right thing. He just, if there was I would have conversations with Johnny about not doing my homework, and Johnny would say to me in my head, you better do your homework, because if not, you'll be in trouble tomorrow. Stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, is it Johnny?
He just pretty much did the right thing, which is cool.
Was his last name G-E-N-T, Gent?
It was J-E-N-T, because, I went to public school, I couldn't spell.
So he was a gentleman.
Yeah.
Johnny the gentleman.
Yeah, Johnny Gent. I never thought of it that way, but yes, Johnny Gent. Yeah. G-E-N-T, yeah. He was just my imaginary bestest friend, who I haven't thought of in years until you brought it up.
Huh. So
I'm gonna put him in a book.
Yeah, we should. Other than Larry, the guy that he used his library card.
Larry White. Hey, to make up for my horrible indiscretion, I always create a character in homage to Larry. Because I realized that was wrong what I did.
You found his library card and then you just used it and never took the books
found his
back?
library card, amassed a
Do you think
ridiculous amount of books.
Do you think the library came after that guy?
Back in those days, they didn't come after you. What would happen, because there was no, you could actually go into a library, a library and ask for a different card, they just give it to you.
Yeah.
It was on an honor system back then.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
So I did kind of atone for it. I was fortunate enough to help create the Comics Art Festival out here in Los Angeles for in conjunction with the L.A. Public Library, Central Public Library.
Mm-hmm.
So I was fortunate enough to do that, you know, I mean, to help in that endeavor when they started.
Well, who are the heroes in your life now?
Wow. Well, my cousins will always, William T. Williams will always be my hero. My mom is my hero because, you know, she's retired now, but she's lived a real life, you know. I mean, she was a real person, good person. I mean, a lot of people would have faced what she faced and just given up. Those are my personal heroes. You know, there are some people who I really, really admire. I don't know if I call them my heroes, but I admire them. I like Bill Gates, you know, on a business front, because Gates, he's a smart guy, and love him, I hate him, can't deny his accomplishments.
Mm-hmm.
And the stuff that he's doing with AIDS and the stuff that he's doing with education is just phenomenal. You know, I mean, to have that kind of bank.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's real easy for you to sit down and go, you know, you give a couple of $1 million a year to charities because it's a tax shelter. This guy's giving billions of dollars, and he's devoting the rest of his life to his main thrust is going to be helping humanity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, you create something like Microsoft, then you decide at the height of your career, you decide that you're going to now help humanity. I mean, that's a hero. And, you know, and people are still taking shots at him. Yeah. You know, for a variety of different reasons. You know, I mean, love him or hate him, and, you know, business is one thing, but, you know, he's a real man. He's a man. Another person I admire was Frank Sinatra. Uh-huh. Frank Sinatra, back in the 40s and 50s, before the civil rights movement really got its national television push, was advocating equality for African Americans and Latinos. He was, you know, Frank Sinatra would refuse to play places if they didn't let Sammy Davis Jr. sit in the audience. And, you know, it was the really 60s. There was something very sexy about being involved in the civil rights movement. It was a thing to do. Like, he did it way before it started to become a big thing in this country. One of the things I admire about him, Frank Sinatra was the biggest star in the world, and he lost it all. He went back to playing saloons in Hoboken. Imagine selling out stadiums, and then a couple of years later, you're playing saloons in Hoboken, New Jersey. Mm-hmm. But when he got back on top, he never forgot his friends. Yeah. And, you know, I mean, I love him, I hate him, you know, I mean, he knew what he wanted, and he knew the kind of person he was. But basically, my heroes are, like I said, my cousin, my mom. From a business standpoint, I love what Bill Gates is doing. Batman.
Well, let me ask you this question, because you've been through some tough times, and you've seen life in the inner cities, and would you say that there's racism going in both directions in our society?
Well, I live in Los Angeles, and I'm a New Yorker, but, you know, I mean, I live in L.A., and I can tell you honestly that when I drive my car in certain areas of the city, I am very conscious of the police, because there's just a stigma out there that young black men with really nice cars are doing something wrong. Now, that, I don't know if that's racism as it is racial profiling. When I first got to L.A., I lived in Beverly Hills. I listened to a lot of audio books, and I was sitting outside my house listening to an audio book at like 2 o'clock in the morning. Cops came up behind me, put the lights on, asked me what I was doing. I told them I was listening to an audio book. Asked me where I was going. I said, I'm going home. They asked me, where do I live? I said, I live right there, pointing to my door. And the guy said to me, I'll never forget this, what do you do to live in that kind of house? And I made a really bad joke, because I thought he would get the joke. He didn't get the joke. He made me get out of my car and put the key in the door to make sure that was my house. Now, again, I don't know if that was racism as opposed to racial profiling. But I do believe that racism still exists in this country. I think that it really is territorial, generational. I think it's stupid. I think the single dumbest thing on the planet are religious wars and racism. Mm-hmm. I mean, come on. Yeah. I mean, it's the stupidest thing. I mean, you look at somebody and you go, hey, you know, but on the flip side of that, I also think that today's kids really don't see color. You know, a lot of the media, well, most kids don't see color. A lot of the media, you know, the media always gets blamed about certain things, but I'm taking a look at advertisements. I'm taking a look at commercials. I'm taking a look at TV shows, and you see more racial diversity. You see mixed couples on television. You see mixed couples in commercials. Mm-hmm. You see them in print ads, and they just put it out there. If you take a look at some of these dating shows, which are horrible, and you will often see two people dating on these dating shows who come from different races, and it's never brought up. That if you were in my opinion, and I'm not a psychologist, if you just let it be, people will at some point start to just let it be. Mm-hmm. But yes, to answer your question in the long run, I think racism still exists, and I think that a lot of it exists so generational, it's so inbound in people. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't think LAPD are racist. I think that just like New York, NYPD, LAPD is a lot of these guys. Their dad was a cop, and their dad and their grandfather was a cop, and there are all these things that you get stories from once we had to break up this fight over on Crenshaw Boulevard and all these black, and you get this stuff embedded in you, and after a while you start making decisions based on what your forefathers have told you. Mm-hmm. Now, before I moved into the house that I'm in now, I was in another house, and the first day I was there, this guy comes across the street, and he introduces himself really nice, and he's very pleasant. He's now one of my best friends. But when he introduced himself, he asked me what I did. I told him. Then I asked him what he did. He said he worked for the city. Later on, when I was talking to my wife, I said, yeah, I just met the neighbor across the street. I think he's a cop. All right? And he was a cop. Mm-hmm. Now, the reason he didn't tell me he was a cop is because as an African-American male in L.A., there are just these racial overtones, and he's thinking he feels it. He's not responsible for it, but he feels it, so he's cautious about letting me in on that. I guess he wanted me to know him. I figured it out, because, you don't say I work for the city. Mm-hmm. You say I'm a city planner, I work for sanitation, or I work for Port Authority. Mm-hmm. He said I work for the city as opposed to I'm a cop. Yeah. Because he didn't want to start off on the wrong foot. Mm-hmm. Now, he's literally one of my best friends now. I mean, I take a bullet for him. He's just he's so cool. He's just a great guy. But he feels it. When he gets out of his car, he feels that tension. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of it is generational, Ralph. I think it's generational, and I think it's stupid.
Yeah, I agree.
But in the stuff that we're doing in the Guardian line, if you take a look at the Bible, the Creative Bible, not the Bible, we've got maybe 300 characters, and it's probably the most diverse universe in comics. Mm-hmm. It really is. It's very diverse. Urban Ministries is a Christian company. My books are really about good versus evil and doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. They're a Christian company, but in these books, there are Jews, there are Muslims. We talk about, it's a racial, political, religious...
It's a sort of reflection of real life.
It's exactly what it is. The city that all of these guys take place in is called the City of New Hope, or New Hope City. And there are different neighborhoods which reflect different... It's just like any other city. It's different areas that reflect that different ethnicities.
Well, how important is it to have trusted friends or a mastermind group to bounce your ideas off?
You know what? For the most part in my life, I've pretty much been a loner. I'm not a joiner, which is fascinating that I work now at Urban Ministries because I actually love that company. And I'm not a joiner. So for me to say I love a company is the majority of my life, I've made a living all by myself, sitting in a room, not having to deal with the whole corporate thing. They're such a great company. It's really like a family, which happens. It's like a family business. It really is. Mm-hmm. I generally don't share a lot of stuff with people. I'll get feedback, the people at Urban Ministries. I'll get feedback from the artists and the writers and the people who are working on this stuff. But I'm not one to show, like, cousins and people, hey, you want to take a look? I'm just not that. I just don't do that. Mm-hmm. First of all, I don't, as hard as it seems, I really don't like talking about my work with people who do it because there's a disconnect. Mm-hmm. But lately, I've been spending a lot of time talking with people. Like my best friend runs animation for BET, so we spend a lot of time talking about certain projects, things we might want to do together, bouncing things back and forth. That's actually how we created Milestone. We were sitting around thinking about what would be cool. Mm-hmm. And then we say, hey, well, why don't we make a company out of this? Mm-hmm. So on that end, it's very, very important for the big picture. But for the little thing, for my day-to-day business and my day-to-day creativity, it's pretty much done before anybody sees it. And then whatever feedback I get or changes I have to make on notes or interjected at that level. Mm-hmm. So I'm not about to get up and go into my wife and, hey, baby, you want to take a look at this and tell me how great I am? I'm just not that guy.
Yeah. I was thinking more along the lines of your mentorship program on how important it is to have people that are successful mentoring other people?
Oh, that's a different question, Ralph. Absolutely, that's extremely important. One of the great things about the mentor program is when you take these kids to professional artist studios, you know, and you see these guys, you see the look on these faces of these kids when they see that you can do this, you can live like this, you can have an exciting life doing what you love. Right? One of the things I used to do when I lived in New York, we get a lot of resistance from parents, you know, because inner city kids, you want your kids to go to, you know, you want your kids to be doctors or lawyers or go to a trade school or something. But art? Come on now. That's just, you know, you're crazy. What I would do is I'd have a parents' night where I invite all these parents to my house. And they'd come to my house, and it was pretty nice, and they would see how I was living, and I said I made every single cent that you see in this home as an illustrator. And I think that your son or daughter is just as talented, if not more talented, than I am. And they actually have a jump on what it is that they're doing. Because I didn't have anybody helping me at this level. I had people supporting me, but I wasn't working with an illustrator. I wasn't working with a photographer. I wasn't working with a writer. I just had people telling me that it was okay that I did it. And that's important. So a lot of the problems that young artists have is they go home and they're beat down by their friends and family. You know, why are you doing that? You should go out and get a real job. I actually had a girlfriend tell me that. Say her name. With my luck, I haven't seen her in 20 years, but you know, with my luck, she'll read this. But I lost my job. I was teaching, and I lost my job. I used to teach during the day, and at night I'd work on my portfolio. So I lost my job, and I came home, and instead of telling me, "Don't worry about it, baby, you'll find another job," she went out and got, she told me to give up this pipe dream of being an illustrator and get a real job. And then the next day, she came home with an application to the post office. I'm like, this ain't supportive. So it's extremely important.
Well, do you think some of our worst enemies are our families and friends that love us, that don't want to see us get hurt, and just are kind of...
I won't say that they're enemies, but I'll certainly say that they're some of our worst deterrents. You know, because they think, here's the thing, an enemy is out to do you harm. Family and friends really think they're helping you by telling you you don't want to do that. They really think they're helping you. But, you know, enemies are like, hey, I want to see you self-destruct. But absolutely, man, some of the worst things that you can do is have someone that you love and respect tell you you can't do something. And you know what? If you can't do it, you will eventually find out that that's not for you. But you should be the one making that decision. You know, I mean, I am all for people giving people constructive criticism. I'm all for that. But, you know, at the end of that constructive criticism, there should be these words. You need to work harder so you can get better. As opposed to, you suck, do something else.
Well, do you think it's important to surround yourself with people that support your dream rather than people that try to crush it?
Actually, my philosophy is just a wee bit different. I think it's important to surround yourself with people who can support your dreams, yes. I also think it's important for you to surround yourself with people who are doing what you do, but they are better than you. I think competition is probably the best for an artist. When they see somebody else's work, and they're the same age, and they're doing similar kinds of work, and you see how much better somebody is than you, that makes you work harder than anything else. One of the problems with art schools, Ralph, is a lot of the instructors are working professionals, so they don't tell you what it is. They don't tell you everything they need to know, you need to know, because they're training their competition. I mean, you know, if you're an illustrator and I want to be an illustrator, why am I going to tell you all my secrets so you can go out and possibly get my job? So one of the things that I tell kids is your instructors have a responsibility up to a certain point, but your success is all on you. Your instructors are not responsible for your success. Your success is all on how hard you work when you leave that classroom. How hard you work when you leave your day job and go home to work in your studio. There are so many actresses and actors and people who come to Hollywood and they get these jobs working at restaurants and such. And, you know, and I know this one particular young lady, very smart, who's got 5 or 6 jobs, and she still thinks that she's going to be a big star. Although she complains all the time, I told her once, listen, your job is your craft. These jobs that you have are simply to make sure that you can eat. Your job is your craft. So if you're working 16 hours, maybe you should work 8 hours and do 16 hours perfecting your craft. But if you don't really do the job, if you don't put in the time, you simply, everybody comes out here is pretty or handsome and can act. Everybody who comes to LA is that person. Everybody is that person who comes out here. So you've got to make sure that your due diligence, that your work ethic is far and above everybody else's, because everybody is talented. Everybody is good at what they do. When you're from Larryville, Kentucky, when you come out here, where it's about making a living doing what you do, you have to raise your game.
Do you think it's important for them to be unique, to stand out in some special way that's different than anybody else?
Absolutely. I think it's three things are important. A, know your craft. If you're an artist, if you're a writer, if you're an actor, if you're a photographer, if you're a cinematographer, know your craft. Be good at what you do. Be excellent at what you do. Never stop learning. B, know the history of your craft. All these comic book artists, their entire comic book knowledge is based on some guy that they like to see draw. I mean, in other words, it's like the only movie star that you like, Wesley Snipes, but, and you don't know who Humphrey Bogart is. You have no sense of history. And three, show your individuality. A lot of people come out, and I'll use the act as another analogy. A lot of people come out here and go on every single audition that they can. A lot of people come out here and think it's a numbers game. Well, in some way, it is a numbers game. If you go to 1 million auditions, you're bound to book a job. But if you only go to auditions, if they're looking for someone to play Martin Luther King, if you're a white guy, you're not getting that job. Why even go?
Yeah.
That's an extreme example. But you get people who go on auditions where they're looking for people who can swim or people who have, and they just go there hoping they can fake it. If actors and actresses would define what they do as a business, okay, I'm making these calls to these agents, to these casting directors. I'm going on these auditions because these are the things that I know that I would be good at. If they just define it as a business, I think they do a little better. Yes, to answer your question, which I forgot.
Which was to be unique, to be outstanding in one specific area.
Yeah, you have to know your craft. A lot of people out here are singer actresses. I tell people, I'm lucky enough to work in the television industry. I tell people, you're a singer who can act, or you're an actress who can sing. Don't be a singer-actress. Pick one. I'm an actor, but yes, I can also sing. But, this whole singer-actress, it's like jack of all trades.
Yeah.
Master of none.
Yeah, you bet.
I've done a lot of different things. I've done TV, graphic design, illustration, comic books. But for me, it's the same job. I create content. That's what I do. I create content. TV, comic books, illustration, it's all the same thing to me, creating content. I'm not a TV producer, comic book artist, main and illustrated graphic designer. I'm a guy who creates content. That's what I do. A lot of people, they want to be everything. I'm a singer. I'm an actress. I'm a ventriloquist. I'm a juggler. Nope, I create content.
Yeah. Well, it's good to know who you are and what you're doing and what you do best.
If you're a phenomenal photographer, you can take any kind of picture. One of the reasons why comic books make great movies is because they're great stories. If the guy that did Sin City, Frank Miller, phenomenal comic book artist, phenomenal comic book writer, Frank isn't doing anything different with the movies. He's doing what he does. He's creating content. But now he's creating that content for a different medium.
Well, who do you feel are the real heroes in our society today that aren't getting the recognition and reward they deserve?
Teachers. I can say that without even thinking. Teachers. Teachers, teachers, teachers. The future of our country, the future of the planet rests in teachers' hands and their ability to reach young people. I think that, teachers are those people. I think clergymen. There's a lot of people out there that think God is dead, And one of the things that Christianity teaches you, or one of the tenements of Christianity, is to make sure that you bring other people to Christ. You give them the opportunity to come into that. And a lot of times, you can be in the wrong place at the wrong time trying to teach that lesson. Because it gives them, it gives them something to look up to. B, it gives them a sense of, look, being a rock star is very cool and glamorous, but being a teacher has real substance. I still remember my 6th grade teacher, Mrs. Ravenel. She was phenomenal. I was a class clown, but you know what? She said, you know what, Michael? You do your work, you can be as funny as you can. You do your work, you can be, she didn't try to pigeonhole me. Mm-hmm. She said, you do your work, I'll give you 5 minutes just to be stupid. Mm-hmm. And I used to couldn't wait for that 5 minutes. You know, because it was like I was able to cut up in class. Mm-hmm. You know, yeah. and generally a lot of that stuff really gave me my presence. I do a lot of lecturing and a lot of public speaking. I'm a motivational speaker on some levels. I've talked in front of just about everybody, and I know for a fact that my ability to do that now came from Mrs. Ravenel, letting me have my 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if you're a kid, the hardest thing in the world to do as a kid is get up in front of people. I loved it.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, I think teachers are it.
I think that's one of the problems with our world today, where schools don't allow kids to be individuals. They just try to look at every one of them as the same.
But, you know, the only reason I have any use for private schools, because I think private schools are kind of elitist and it's not fair. But you know what? But the only reason is because they really nurture individuality. Mm-hmm. You know, one of the problems with people of color, in my opinion, is that the parents are usually so busy trying to work that quality time that is spent, you know, with being able to have one person at home to tell you things, like little things. Because, you know, reading and writing is one thing, you know, but it's the little things that really helps you get ahead. Yeah. You know, personality, you know, I mean, the importance of not being late, the importance of dressing well, yada, yada, yada. Private schools really nurture that individuality. I almost taught at one, which would have changed me entirely as an artist. If I would have went to teach at this school, which was making it really hard for me not to, because it was such a great deal, I just would have been a different person.
What do you think are the things that parents can do that will help their children realize they too can be heroes and make a positive impact on the lives of others?
Listen to their kids, talk to their kids, be interested in what their kids, you know, a lot of people, little things like kid draws a picture, you put it on the refrigerator, that's kind of cool for a kid, you know? Just nurture what it is they're doing, but be parents. Don't be that, you know, my mother was not my friend. My mother was not a disciplinarian, but I knew for a fact no meant no. Yeah. She was not my friend. She was not my buddy. I did something wrong, I was in trouble. My mother, in my entire, I was a good kid, collectively speaking. My mother only hit me once. That's all it took. Yeah. That was it, dude. My mother hit me once. I'm like, oh, I'm never doing that again. Yeah. So mostly you can listen to their kids and understand that their kids are not them. Yeah. And nobody, you know, you see these nanny shows on TV, Ralph, Super Nanny or Nanny 911. Yeah. Very seldom do you see a black Asian kid on those shows, because they, you know, you don't talk back to your mother. You don't talk back to you back to your mother and father. Martin Luther King said, if you're a street cleaner, be the best darn street cleaner you can be. Take respect yourself, respect others around you, respect others' cultures, respect others' religions. Once you get to a point where people understand that you are doing the best that you can, I think that makes you a hero. You know, you're doing the best that you can, and you are acknowledging them and your space, and you're doing the things that people can go, oh, you know, you should look at, if someone can say, you know, you should look at what Michael Davis is doing. If someone can say that to their kids, I would feel like a hero.
You know, it's funny. How does it feel to be recognized as a social hero? Because I'm recognizing you right now.
I don't know. As much smack as I talk, Ralph, you know, I really am kind of humble when it comes to talking about this sort of stuff. And I'll tell you just how. Years ago, I had an auditorium named after me. And it was a very big honor. They had a marching band there. They had all this stuff. And they had all these dignitaries and mayors and governors. I only invited one person to come with me. Usually, you know, you invite 50 people sitting in the front row, you know, so you can have your moment. And I'm like, hey, whatever. My mother calls me now. She'll see something about me in the newspaper. She'll call me and say, why didn't you tell me? I say, I don't know. You know, this guy called me up and wanted to interview me. I feel very honored. Here's what I do know. I feel honored and privileged to be able to talk directly to the kids and to the parents of the kids who are going to be reading this, and hopefully I didn't embarrass myself too much. I feel honored that you would say that, and I feel a great pride being grouped with the other people who I've read about on your site. Very impressive.
You know, the most important thing is making a positive difference in the lives of others. It's really true that a hero is someone who's given his or her life to something bigger than themselves, and they do the right thing when nobody's watching.
Absolutely, I feel that yes, absolutely.
Well, how will being recognized as a hero change your life, since you're constantly creating heroes and illustrating them? How do you think being recognized as a real-life hero will change your creation of the heroes that you create with your art?
I don't really think it's going to change me at all on any level, because if you love what you do, like I do, you're pretty much content at your station in life. If I was never recognized and I could do what I'm doing, I'd be okay with that. As a matter of fact, it's funny. We did a Guardian Line preview book. I created all the characters. I created all of the storylines. I created the universe. I created the city. But in the Guardian Line preview book, my name's not mentioned once. And somebody said, "Why isn't your name mentioned?" I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just not a big thing to me. But I just am glad to do what I do. You know, I mean, I'm a very lucky individual. Luckier than some, not as lucky as others, but I'm okay with my station in life.
Yeah. Well, do you have any good solutions to the problems facing society, especially racism, child and spousal abuse, and violence among young people?
I don't know if there are solutions, but I certainly have opinions. I think a lot of the stuff that we are involved in, a lot of the stuff that you mentioned are parental problems, upbringing problems. You know, I mean, I grew up in a horrendous neighborhood, but I turned out okay because my mother, who was working 3 jobs, found a way to take care of me. Never complained, just did it. Men who beat women or women who beat men should be punched in the head on national TV. I really think people should be held responsible for their actions. I'm pretty much a liberal Democrat on most things in my life, except when it comes to crime, especially against women, because of, you know, I mean, I've got personal issues with that because of what happened to my sister and my grandmother. I really think that people should be made absolutely take responsibility for their lives. I think society, at certain levels, should stop making excuses for bad behavior. You know and I know when something is wrong. Most people know when something is wrong, yet they do it anyhow. I think, again, this may not be politically correct, but I think if you're caught on tape committing a crime, there shouldn't even be a trial. It's like, you see people on tape, Ralph, doing something horribly bad, looking at the camera. You know it's them. They know it's them. And they plead not guilty. It's like...
That's pretty hard to believe, isn't it?
I mean, but they plead not guilty. And then plead not guilty because of something that happened to them when they were 7 years old or something.
Yeah.
So I just think that people should be responsible for their actions. I think that we as a society should stop making excuses for people when they do bad things. And I think that if you do a bad thing, say you're sorry, beg for forgiveness, and go on with your life. But too many people, this is why I did it, this is why, and I'm like, all right, well. But my solution is just take responsibility for your own actions, you know, which may or may not happen, but, you know, I mean, I've made some horrendous mistakes, and the biggest mistakes I've made is not taking responsibilities for my actions when I did these things, you know, years ago. Like, now it's like I do something like, hey, sorry, my bad. You know?
Boy, that's so true. Well, if you had 3 wishes for your life in the world that would come true instantly, what would they be?
Oh, man, that's hardcore. But first of all, we find true peace. It's absolutely true peace. And even if you disagree with somebody, it wouldn't end with somebody dropping another bomb on you. You know, you can still be individuals, you can still disagree, but your fighting should really be confined to verbal jousting. I don't like you either, but I'm not about to bomb your country because I don't like you. So peace would be the first thing. Second thing would probably be to see my sister again, because at that age when she died, I really didn't have a whole lot of time to bond with her. She did the single greatest thing me and my sister, you know, like any other brothers and sisters, we were mortal enemies. You know, I mean, I loved her, and she loved me, but she was my big sister, and I was a little brother. It was my job to be a pain in the butt. That's like in the Little Brother Handbook. So, my mother, my sister, I was a pretty good kid, but my sister, for the most part, was always getting into trouble. Always getting into trouble. So, she used to get a spanking fairly regularly. And my mom could give a good spanking. Long story short, I did something really, I told you once that I was only hit once. Well, the day that I was hit, and it was because I talked back to my mother. I did something stupid, and then I did something stupid, and then I talked back to my mother when she asked me if I did it. I said, yeah, I did it, so what? And she said, all right, tonight you're going to get your butt kicked. I'm like, whatever. Anyway, I can't tell you what she used to beat us with because that's, in the year 2006, that's child abuse. Back then it was just good parenting. You know,
it definitely got results.
Well, you know, some people have this little paddle hanging up in the kitchen for spanking. Go get the paddle. My mom had a .45 automatic hanging up there. Go get the gun. I'm gonna have to shoot you in the leg so you don't do this again. So, long story short, my mother's coming into my room to beat me. My sister sees her going into my room with the item that she's going to beat me with. My mortal enemy comes in, and I'm thinking, what's the big deal? She comes in, she stands between me and my mother and says, you can't beat him with that. He's not ready for it. That's when I knew true fear. When my sister stood up for me. So, and as you get older, we got closer as we got older and whatnot, and she really, and I just wish I could see her again, so that would be my second wish. I guess I will see her eventually, but see, I'm not very materialistic, man, so I don't really have a whole lot of stuff that I would wish for, because my life is pretty full. But I guess if I had a third wish, it would be for any stupid mistake that I've ever made, and I made a few, for me to be able to rectify that. You know what? That's a bad. Yeah, take that wish out. That's a bad wish. I wish for. I said world peace. I said to see my sister again. Pot of gold.
Pot of gold. Okay. Well, at least you didn't ask for more wishes.
Some Skittles. Yeah. That's the old one. Yeah, I wish for 3 more wishes.
Well, 2's okay. You know, 2's in the pot of gold, fine.
Yeah, pot of gold. Free cable. I don't know, man.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you one more because I really know how busy you are, and I appreciate your time.
No, this is, hopefully I wasn't too long-winded because, it's very, I pretty much talk for a living. I really get tired of doing it, but you make this very easy. These are great questions. Yeah,
well, it really shows how people become successful and what their thought process is. It's not so much about special tricks that you use, but it's how the type of person that you need to become to be successful. And by asking these questions of people like you and other people that are extremely successful, young people have the opportunity to see, well, gee, that person's unique, they love what they do, and it gives them a good example of achieving their dream and being the unique person that God created them to be and not being afraid or having the courage to be who God created them to be.
I believe that fear is the single thing that keeps most people from doing what they need to do. Fear of failure, fear of success, fear. Probably one of the things, and I'm not being funny, I'm not being facetious, and I'm not being overly complimentary, but but I will tell you this: I'm real hard to impress. I got a high level of excellence. It's like, people show me stuff. I'm like, it's nice, but whatever. I'm really hard to impress. What you're doing with this is very impressive. And that for me is the greatest compliment I can give. It's very impressive. I just love stuff like this. And it's not enough stuff like this being done. I feel, like I said before, I feel honored to be a part of this. I'm excited to, I do interviews all the time, but I'm actually excited to read this one. Somebody I was on TV and somebody sent me a link to the video clip, and I have yet, and they sent it to me yesterday, and I have yet to look at it. Because I'm like, whatever. But this is exciting, and I'm very proud to be involved in this.
Oh, thank you. And it's interesting that some of the most profound interviews that I've done so far are with black men that have overcome tremendous difficulties in their life, like Willie Crawford and Stephen Pierce and Orrin Hudson. And probably one of the most amazing people in the interviews was the black cop on Baywatch, Gregory Allen Williams. He was the first hero that one of the high school kids interviewed, and we actually have a video of his interview. And he was a real hero because he actually saved the life of an Asian man during the LA riots in 1992. And even though he was a movie star,
that's what I'm talking about. That's selfless.
It was incredible. It's one of the best interviews of anybody that I've ever done. And he was so articulate, and he really just set the tone for the entire program and inspired me to carry it on for 14 years. And just for people like you that have been successful and overcome tremendous things, I know it's so inspiring for young people. So I really appreciate your time.
Oh, no, not at all. Anything else I can do for you, you name it, any artwork you need, whatever it is you need, just let me know, and I will get it to you yesterday.
Well, I'd love to get a link to some of your artwork, so when people come in and listen to your interview, I'm going to break it up into like 20 different segments and post it in all the blogs. That I'd love to drive people to your site so people could actually see your artwork, because, you know, just with how I've come to know you through your interview, I'm sure your artwork is even more incredible and inspiring because you do it out of love.
Well, the artwork for the Guardian line is, I don't do any of that stuff. These great artists who work for me, but the artwork is phenomenal.
I just really appreciate your time, and I appreciate what you're doing and making the world a better place and creating faith-based comics that give people the truth about how to live successful lives by understanding the wisdom in the Word of God.
Well, thank you very much, and I don't think I've gotten a higher compliment ever.
Yeah, well, thanks again. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir, and you have a pleasant, and have a good holiday weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Take care.